Yeah, I'll ask you this question now. What do you feel is the goal of healing?
I think the goal of healing, the ultimate goal of healing, is to come to a place of acceptance with yourself and your life.
Yeah.
Being peaceful and accepting where you are in life at that given point in your life, and that is what we ultimately are all striving to do, right? I mean, some people would say happiness, but I don't know if it's so much happiness as it is peace.
Yes, I feel the same way, Kiran.
I really think peace is more important.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And do you connect healing with spirituality? And if you do, what does it look like, this relationship between healing and spirituality? And also, what is spirituality to you these days?
Okay, so everyone has their own way of connecting to something greater than them, if they believe that there's something greater than them out there, using that as a tool. Like when we're in grad school, we're taught about like the biopsychosocial spiritual model, right? You're looking at the biology of someone when they are sick. You're looking at their psychology, the way that they're thinking. You're looking at their social functioning and where they are in the world and who's surrounding them. And is it a healthy environment that they're in? Could that be influencing their healing process, or making them sick or making them better? And then the spiritual piece comes in. And it's like, is there a belief system that you have that helps you get through rough times? And I think that's basically what healing and spirituality kind of represent to me. It's like you're looking at all aspects of things, and that is an aspect that's included. It has been throughout history for most people on earth. Are there people who are 100% atheist out there that believe in nothing? Or complete nihilists that are like, yeah, there's nothing? There are. But when you look at just the majority of people have something that they believe in that transcends their basic self, and they have this sense of that there's something greater than them out there, So it's like, how do you incorporate that to help yourself get better and come to a place of acceptance and peace with circumstances that are in your life that might be less than ideal? Because I myself have gone through what most people would call a spiritual awakening, I don't consider it a spiritual awakening because I don't like using that term. And there's something about that term that makes me feel like there's a superiority tone to it, or like some kind of tone of being elevated in some way above other people. And I don't think that that's what it is. I like to think of it as consciousness expansion. And I think that fits in more with just the kind of work that I do for a living and being a clinician and studying the psyche, using the term consciousness expansion to explain these growth spurts. I like to consider it a growth spurt of your consciousness that can happen for some people, and a lot of people on earth right now it's happening to spontaneously. The same way that teenagers have a spontaneous physical growth spurt that they can't control. There's some people that are 5'6", and there's some people that are 5'8", and then there's some people that are 6'3". We don't judge people by height, and say that this person's better than that person because of just their height. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like when you have a certain level of consciousness, it just means that you haven't had some experiences that someone else might have had. Some people are born at that expanded consciousness level. There are people who are born completely woke. There's kids nowadays that are being born like that. They're wild to observe. But then there's some people that reach it slowly through practicing their religion. And there's some people that reach it because they go through all these different kinds of traumas. And the next thing they know, they get thrown into it without their consent. And then they have no choice but to come out of the other end of it feeling some other way than they were before they went in, and usually it's probably more peaceful. They call it post-traumatic growth, So the spirituality thing now is more of like a consciousness expansion. So there's 3 different kinds, there's a kind where you're born that way, which I had mentioned earlier, and then there's the kind that can happen gradually without your consent, and then there's a kind that happens spontaneously all of a sudden, people who have near-death experiences and things like that, like car accident or whatever, they can have something like that happen. So mine was the gradual without my consent.
Gradual without consent.
And it's been 13 years, and I don't think it's over yet. It's still in process, but definitely was not something that I had ever thought, A, would happen to me, B, that I would even know how to handle once it started. It was wild. And the experiences that I had were so profound, and there was no one to talk to about it because it's such a sensitive thing. It could be easily mixed up with someone having psychotic experiences. So it's like you have to be very careful, especially when you're a clinician, if you're a psychologist, what you're telling your therapist. If it's not the right therapist, they might actually think that there's something else going on. So a big part of my learning experience throughout my own thing And especially after the book that we're going to talk about, one of them was when it came to me literally after meditating while I was doing the dishes, the name of it, when I looked it up and I found it, it gave me the ultimate answers that I needed to not only understand what was going on with me, but then like really be able to clinically differentiate between my patients who are going through this or who have an actual episode of like some kind of mania or psychosis or whatever. One of the big differences, I think, is that most people who have a manic episode, a full-blown manic episode, will have the extra burst of energy sometimes that they talk about. That can actually be synonymous with the burst of energy that people who have a Kundalini awakening might have. But there's other behaviors that come along with it. It's not just the burst of energy. It could be staying up all night and getting a bunch of things done. It could be like going on like a drinking binge and going out there and having like a sexcapade and sleeping with like all these different people and wiping out your bank account, during a manic episode by buying things that you really don't need. With schizophrenia, there's an affect that comes along with it. If they're hearing voices or they're seeing things, what is the context of that? How does it feel to them? If the voices are negative and if they are cruel and mean and sometimes, like coming at you with like instructions to do things that are harmful to you or others, that's a huge red flag. But the difference between the voices that they hear and the internal voices that psychic people who have clairaudience or clairvoyance, or the images that they see, is that theirs aren't negative like that. And it'll be usually like short little, for people who are going through consciousness expansion and have tapped into that ability to be able to get the messages from the other side. They come in when they feel like it sometimes, like it could be while you're waking up out of your sleep in the early morning. That's often when I get my things. Or like when you're doing something benign, like driving a car or washing your hair or doing the dishes, it could be just like a passing little thought sentence. They're just like brief little snippets of information that just get plopped into your head. And you're kind of pretty positive that it's not you because you didn't know about that thing before it happened. It's not an instruction. And if it is an instruction, it's not going to be like a negative, harmful instruction. It's always peaceful or like guiding. One of the things that I look for when I'm asking them these questions is, what are they saying? And did any of what they say end up being true, or is it just causing you distress? And then you have to look at their hygiene. People who are going through consciousness expansions and things like that, they keep up. I mean, I did. I was able to keep up with my life. But people who have like schizophrenia are not able to keep up with their life like that often, depending on the severity of it. But like their hygiene goes down the drain. You want to look at, are they able to maintain relationships with other people? When people are going through a consciousness expansion, they do often lose friends, but it's usually because their value system has changed and they don't see the world the same way that their friends do anymore. So that they can't relate anymore and they get uncomfortable with topics of conversation that can come up with them and stuff. Whereas with schizophrenic people, they just don't want to be around anyone sometimes. Like they'll just kind of keep to themselves and they don't have an interest in other humans. Whereas when you see people with consciousness, they're almost like starving to find other people like them and connect with people that understand what they're talking about. Whereas the other one does not have that need at all.